This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, hi guys. I hope you can see my screen. So let's get started. So first, I'm going to launch the Jupyter Notebook. To launch Jupyter Notebook, I can just launch Anaconda. Just search for Anaconda Navigator and open that. So it will take around 1 minute to launch the Anaconda Navigator. So give it some time. Once Anaconda Navigator launches, you will see bunch of applications. Out of that, we will go ahead and launch Jupyter Notebook. So the Anaconda Navigator has been launched. Now I'm going to go ahead and then launch the Jupyter Notebook. You can see an option here for Jupyter Notebook. I'm just going to click on this launch button. Once you click on launch, this will open up on your one of your default browser. In my case, it is Google Chrome. It's going to open up automatically in my Google Chrome browser. Then I'll go to my downloads from here, and I have created a folder for yesterday. I'm going to search for the same. Control F, November 2022. So I'll open up this folder. So this is the notebook that we have created yesterday. For today's session, I'm going to create a new notebook. Click on new, Python 3. So today we're going to talk about if statements and loop. I'm going to click on untitled. So just give the name as if statements and loops. Then click on rename. So once you do that, we are good to actually go ahead and create the respective headings and then get started. So first let's talk about the standard input and standard output. So first let's talk about the standard output. I'll go ahead and add a heading for the same. So from this drop down, select heading, click on OK. Standard output, shift enter on your keyboard. So now you can go ahead and then write your code. So let's say that I have a number equal to 100. Then to print the same, you can just say the value of num is, and then you can print it by using, you can just use comma here. That should work. Now, if I don't use comma and if I just use plus operator here, then it will fail because plus operator is nothing but concatenate operator. That is, you are trying to add a string which is in the double quotes and a number which is nothing but number. So that is not valid. You can see can only concatenate string to a string, not string to an integer. To solve this problem, what we have to do is we have to convert this number to a string. So if you're using plus operator, you have to convert this number to a string by using str. Now have a look here, we got the output. So that's how we have to do a slide conversion, especially if you are trying to concatenate strings and then numbers. Now let me talk about output formatting. I'll add a heading for output formatting. So let's say that I have two numbers, let's say a equal to 10 and b equal to 20. Then to print this, what I can say is print the value of a is, you can use the flower brackets, and the value of b is, you can use the flower brackets. Then you can just use format function dot format and pass on those values a and a comma b. That will print the respective values. And also another interesting thing is you can get the a similar output based on their positions also. So what I mean here is A is available at index position 0 and B is available at position 1. So if you move from left to right, A will be at position 1, B will be at position, sorry, A will be at position 0, B will be at position 1. You will get the similar output. So you can also try something like this. So print hello, and then you can just say, let's say greet, say dot format, let's say greet equal to, let's say, good evening, right? You got the same output. If you want, you can club both. Let me say print the story of, you can just use something like this, dot format from Sam, and let's say other is, let's say, Steve. So here I'm trying to club both. So this is how you can format your output. This is important, especially in the projects when you wanted to print some log statements as a part of your project. This is very helpful, and that is quite important, especially to debug any issues. Logging is quite important, and we can try to use the format function whenever you wanted to use logging. So that's with respect to the standard output. Now we will focus on standard input. So standard input is nothing but reading the input from the user. To read the input from the user in Python, we are going to use a function called as input function. So let me add a heading for the same. I've selected heading, clicked on OK. Says standard input. Suppose I wanted to read the number from the user and then I wanted to print the same. So number equal to input of enter any number, then print the same, print of that number. So let's say I will enter the number as 100 and you got the output. Now, if I try to run this code once again, this time, let's say I'll pass hello. Hello is not a number, it should not be accepted, but it is still accepting it. We can solve this problem by validating the input. Now, what is the meaning of validating the input? This is how I'm going to do. I'm going to say int of input of that number that I'm going to get. Let's run it again. I'm going to enter 200. It should work fine. Now, if I enter anything apart from a integer number, it should fail. Let's say world, it should fail with value error. Right, so this is how we can validate the input as well when you try to read it from the user. This is with respect to the standard input. Now let's talk about if statements in Python. So first, it's better to understand the syntax of if statement. If test expression, and if this test expression is true, only then the statements within the if block would be executed. So if the test expression is false, the statements could not be executed. Python interprets non-zero values as true, none and zero are considered as false. One interesting thing in Python is even the negative numbers are also considered as true, such as -1, -10, etc. All those are considered as true. So except 0, none and false, everything else is considered as false in Python. So everything else are considered as true in Python. Even empty string is also considered as false in Python. So let me show this practically. I will add a heading, if statement. So suppose let's say I'll read a number equal to 10, and I can say if number print I am inside block. Run this cell. So you can see if number, which is nothing but 10. 10 is turning out to be true, hence it's going to enter the if block. Suppose if I enter 0, let's enter 0, that's false, hence it is not printing anything. Let's say I will enter -10. -10 is also considered as true, hence it should print it. And suppose if you enter it as, let's say, none here, none is considered as false, it should not print anything. Even false is considered as false, it won't print anything. If it is true, it should consider and it should go inside the if block. As I told, even the empty strings are also considered as false. So this is an empty string, and this is also considered as false, hence it won't go inside. It's not printing anything, right? So that is with respect to the if block. So a slight variation of this is called as if else. So if test expression, if this condition is true, whatever is there in the if block would be executed. If the condition is false, whatever is there in the else block would be executed. So let's see this practically. So suppose let's say I wanted to add a heading first. If else statement. So I wanted to read the input from the user and I have to decide whether that number is an even number or odd number. So let's read it from the user. Int of input of enter any number. If that number %2 equal to 0, then that's an even number. Else print odd number. So now let's go ahead and run this cell. Enter any number, let's say 5, and then you are getting output as odd number. So 5%2 is how much? Is going to give you 1. So what is the meaning of percentage here? This is going to get you the remainder, right? So if the remainder is 1, then that's an odd number. If the remainder is 0, then that's an even number. So 5 is an odd number. So this is going to compare it against 0 here. Is 1 equal to 0? That is false. Hence it's going to go to the else block. It's printing odd number. Let's run it again. This time I'm going to enter 4. So 4 is showing as even number. So 4%2, what is the remainder here? Remainder is 0. Is 0 equal to 0? Yes, that is true. Hence it is entering the if block. Hence you are seeing output as even number. So that's how we can play with the if else statements. So now there is another interesting thing called as nested if statements. That is, if you have one if else statement within another one, this is called as nested if. So let me show it practically. So let's add a heading for the same. Nested if statements. Suppose again I wanted to read the input from the user. Int of input of enter any number. Then I have to decide whether that number is a positive number or negative number or 0. If that number is greater than or equal to 0, within that if block again I'll have if that number is equal to 0, then print it as 0. Else print it as positive number. Else print negative number. So let's go ahead and run this. First I'm going to enter 10. You can see it's giving output as positive number. So the first condition is 10 greater than or equal to 0. Let's look at that condition. Is 10 greater than or equal to 0? Yes. Should be true. Hence it's going to enter the if block. Now the second check is if that number is equal to 0 or not. Is 10 equal to 0? It is false. It's going to go to the else block. Hence you are seeing the output as positive number. Let me enter minus 20. You can see the output is showing as negative number. So the first check is whether minus 20 is greater than or equal to 0 or not. Is minus 20 greater than or equal to 0? That is false. Hence it's going to go to the else block. It is printing the output as negative number. Let's run it once again. I'll enter 0 now. You can see the output is showing as 0. Again, the first condition is 0 greater than or equal to 0. Yes, that is true because you have equal symbol there. Because of equal symbol, that's going to give you the output as true. So this is going to enter the if block. Now here, it's going to check. So whether that number is equal to 0 or not. So that is the condition. Is 0 equal to 0? Yes, that is true. Hence, it's going to go to the if block and then it is giving the output as 0. Right? So that's how you're seeing the output as 0. But a lot of people get confused with nested if statements. Hence, there is an alternative called as if, elif, else. In other programming languages, people call it as if else ladder. So this is again pretty straightforward. You have this if test expression. If this is true, whatever is there in the if block would be executed. Again, we'll have elif. Again, we'll have one more condition. If this is true, whatever is there in the elif could be executed. If both are false, then whatever is there in the else block could be executed. So let's give a try with the same example. I will add a heading for the same. So if elif else statement. So I wanted to rewrite the same example, the above example, by using if elif else. Again, I'm going to read the input from the user. Int of input of enter any number. So if that number is greater than 0, print positive number. Positive number. Elif that number is equal to 0, print negative number. Else print 0. Right? So this is what I wanted to try. Let's run it. Enter any number. Let's say I will enter it as 10 again. The output is showing as positive number. So the first condition is 10 greater than 0. Yes. As 10 is greater than 0, immediately the respective if block could be executed. Hence the output is showing as positive number. Sorry, there is a typo here. Should be reverse. Should be 0. This should be negative number. Let's run it again. So now I'm going to enter the input as 0. So the first condition is 0 greater than 0. That is false. It will go to the next one. Is 0 equal to 0? Yes, that is true. Hence it's going to go to the respective block. It's printing the output as 0. Now let me let me run it again. I'll enter minus 30. You can see the output is showing as negative number. So the first condition is minus 30 greater than 0? Is minus 30 greater than 0? You can see it showing as false, right? Then it will go to the next one. Is minus 30 equal to 0? Is minus 30 equal to 0? It's showing as false, right? So if both are becoming false, then it will go to the next block, which is nothing but negative number. Hence it is printing the same. So that is how if, elif, else works. And one interesting thing here is elif is actually shortcut for else if. Hence that's how they have derived this keyword called as elif. So instead of nested if statements, people preferably go with if, elif, else statements. So now there is an interesting operator called as ternary operator in Python. This is actually shortcut for if else statement. If you wanted to write if else statement in single line, then we will go ahead with the ternary operator. First, let's try to understand the syntax of ternary operator. This is the syntax. If expression, if this expression is true, whatever is there before if could be executed. If this expression is false, whatever is there in the else block could be executed. Let's Let's understand this with the help of an example. I will add a heading. Ternary operator. Suppose I wanted to read the student marks. Based on the marks, I wanted to decide whether the student has passed or failed. So let's say marks equal to int of input of enter any number. Enter any number. So then we will say if marks greater than or equal to 40, greater than or equal to 40, print passed. Else print failed. Let's run it. So let's enter, let's say 35. It's showing as failed because the first condition is this: is 35 greater than or equal to 40? Is 35 greater than or equal to 40? Yes. Not yes, sorry, no. Hence it's going to fail, or it's going to turn out to be false. It's going to go to the else block. That's why it is printing the output as failed. Let's run it again. I'll enter 79 now. Is 79 greater than or equal to 40? 79 greater than or equal to 40. Yes, that is true. Hence it's going to give the output as passed. So this is interesting operator, ternary operator. You can use it especially, 1 minute. You can use it especially if you wanted to write a single line of code. It's a basically shortcut for if else. I can't say that it's a shortcut. Basically, if you want to write if else statement in a single line, then we go with ternary operator. Let's talk about while loop. So first understand the syntax of while loop. So the syntax goes this way: while and then the test expression. If this test expression is true, whatever is there in the body of while loop could be executed. So let's understand this with the help of an example. While loop. So suppose I wanted to print the numbers from 1 to 10 by using while loop. So the starting number is 1, ending number is 10. I am going to define the same. Start is 1, end is 10. Here comes my condition: while start less than or equal to end, print start, and then increment start. Start equal to start plus 1. Let's run it, and we can see that as expected we are seeing the output as 1 to 10. What exactly happening here? First 1 less than or equal to 10, that is the starting point, right? Is 1 less than or equal to 10? That is true. Hence it's going to enter while loop. It's going to print start, which is nothing but 1, right? And then it's incrementing the start value by 1. Start equal to start plus 1. So start will be 2. Again it will check the condition: 2 less than or equal to 10. Condition is true. Hence it's going to print the start value, which is nothing but 2. It's printing start, which is nothing but 2. It's incrementing start. 2 plus 1 is 3. So this process continues until it reaches 10. Is 10 greater than less than or equal to 10? Yes, that is true. It will enter the while loop. It will print the start value, which is nothing but 10, and then it will increment the start value by 1, which is nothing but 10 plus 1, 11. Is 11 less than or equal to 10? That is false. That's where the loop will terminate or loop will stop. So a lot of people make a mistake in while loop. In while loop, actually there are 3 things to be focused on. First one is the assignment of the initial values, such as start value and end value. Second step is checking the condition, start less than or equal to end. Lot of people forget about this third step, start equal to start plus 1. And if you forget about this, then you will end up in infinite loop. So it will be always printing 1. So that is a problem. Don't do that. Please don't forget the third step of incrementing the value. Any questions still here, guys? I'll wait for 2 minutes. I believe we are good, so no questions so far. Let's move on. So don't forget the third step. If you forget it, you will see yourself in an infinite loop. It will be printing 1 always. Moving on to the next loop, for loop. So the for loop in Python is used to iterate over a sequence, which is nothing but list, tuple, or a string, or other iterable objects. Iterating over a sequence is called as traversal. So this is the syntax of for loop. For element in sequence, then you can go inside the for loop. So let's understand it with the help of an example. Let's add a heading for loop. For loop. So I'm going to define a list here, list in Python. Again, we haven't spoken about lists yet. We'll talk about lists in depth tomorrow. But for now, to define a list in Python, we have to use the square brackets, and then you can have your numbers. Let's say 11, 22, 33, 44, 55. So this is my list. To confirm, type of LST, it's a list. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to traverse through this loop, or go through each and every element one by one and then print it. I can do so by using for loop. For element in LST, print element. Now you can see that I'm able to see all the elements from this list. Again, this element is just a variable. It can be anything. So instead of element, I can even have it as A. This will still work. Again, one of the common mistake I see here is, let's say I'll take the element as X, but I try to print it by using Y. It doesn't know what Y is, right? Whatever variable that you are using here in for, the same should be used within the for loop block, inside the for loop as well. Otherwise, you will see such errors. So that is with respect to the for loop. Now, I want to talk about indentation in Python. So in the interviews, I've seen that this is one of the common question. Can you tell me some of the common issues that you have faced when working in Python? You can say that indentation errors are quite common when you're working in Python or PySpark. You can highlight the same. You can say that. So sometimes I may have to face the indentation issues or indentation errors in the code. That is the good answer. Now let's try to understand what is indentation in Python. But before that, I think I skipped one thing called as range function. Sorry, we'll talk about indentation shortly, but before that, I want to talk about range function. So range is actually a function in Python, which is actually used to print the numbers. So you can see the syntax of range: start value, stop value, step size. Range function takes three inputs: start value, stop value, step size. Out of these three, the mandatory parameter is nothing but stop value. Even if you don't specify start value, it will take 0 as the starting value. Even if you don't specify step size, it's going to take the default value as 1. So what is step size? First of all, by what value I have to increment the start value. We will understand it with the help of an example. For now, remember that range function takes three parameters: start value, stop value, step size. Out of these three, stop value is mandatory. If you don't specify start value, it will be starting from 0. If you don't specify step size, the default step size is 1. Let's understand it with the help of an example. I will add a heading. Let's say for I in range of 10, print I. You can see that I'm seeing the numbers from 0 to 9. So whatever number that I've specified here 10 is actually nothing but the stop value. I have not specified the start value, hence it is starting with 0, and I have not specified the step size, it is taking the default value as 1. We will get the same output even if I say this as well. And see here, is there any change in the output? No changes. Starting value is 0 and stopping value is 10 and step size is 1. Even though we are mentioning the stop value as 10, it will consider 10 minus 1, which is nothing but 9 as the maximum value. Right? Now, as I told, stop value is mandatory. Let's do one thing. Let's not pass any parameters to range function. It's not going to work. Range expected at least one argument got 0. We are not passing any parameters to range, hence it is failing. So at least one parameter is mandatory. Now when I say at least one, it is generally stop value. If you don't specify start value, it's going to consider from the 0, and if you don't specify step size, it's going to consider the step size as 1. Let's do one thing. Let's try to print the numbers from 1 to 10 by using range. So I'm going to say 1, and because I wanted to print till 10, I wanted to consider 11. Because 11 minus 1 is 10, it should get the output here. However, here we are getting output as 1 to 10. Right, as expected. And now, as I told, you are not specifying the step size. In this case, by default, it will consider it as 1. You see any change in the output? No changes. If you don't specify the step size, by default, it's going to be 1. Now, suppose I wanted to print the odd numbers. What are odd numbers? 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on. Right? I wanted to print the odd numbers less than 10. So the easy way to solve this problem is by using step size as 2. Step size as 2. Now you can see I'm seeing only the odd numbers 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so on. So to print the odd numbers less than 10, this is the easiest way. Right? So that is with respect to the range function. So one important point with respect to the range function, this range function doesn't store all the values in the memory. It would be inefficient. So it remembers the start value, stop value, and step size and generates the next number on the go. On the fly, it's going to generate these values. It's not going to store anything in the memory. It's a slightly inefficient function. The third point is important with respect to the interview point of view. Right? So this function doesn't store all the values in the memory. It would be inefficient. So it remembers the start value, stop value, and step size and generates the next number on the go. Let's talk about indentation in Python. But before that, I think I wanted to cover one more thing called as break statement. This break statement is generally used to break from a given loop or exit from a given loop based on a condition. Suppose, first let me add a heading. Break statement. So the problem statement is I wanted to print the odd numbers only till 5. I wanted to print odd numbers only till 5. Or let's say as soon as I see 5, I wanted to break from the for loop. That's the condition. Let's see how to solve this by using break statement. I'll check the number here. If I is equal to 5, then immediately break. Else, print that. I can see first it is printing 1 because is 1 equal to 5. That is not true. It will go to the else block. It is printing 1. Next odd number is 3. Is 3 equal to 5? That is again false. It's going to go to the else block. Then we'll have 5. Is 5 equal to 5? Yes, that is true. Hence, this entering if block, it is breaking. It's not printing any other elements as well. So the break statement is used to exit from a given loop based on a given condition. I've seen this question is also asked in some of the interviews. Just be prepared for the same. Now we'll talk about indentation in Python. I'll add a heading. So I'll take an example. Let's say for I in range of let's say range of 1, 11, and I wanted to print I. So this will print the numbers from 1 to 10. Now to talk with respect to the indentation, just a moment. Guys, can you hear me? Sorry, there was an interruption. Can you hear me now? Can someone confirm? I'm audible. Hello.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was talking about indentation. So we were printing the numbers from 1 to 10 by using for loop, right? Now, let's say that I wanted to have one more statement after that. Sorry for the interruption back. So I'm printing the numbers from 1 to 10, and now I wanted to add a statement after that. Let's say print I am outside for loop. So this statement that I'm writing right now is outside for loop because this is not at the same level as that of the inner print statement. Now if you print it, you can see that it is printing all the numbers first, then it is printing I'm outside for loop because this is at the same level as that of the outside of for loop, right? Now if I slightly move this print statement within the for loop after each and every element, then it will print saying I am inside for loop, right? Because this is at the same level as that of the inner print statement. Now if I put it somewhere in between, what will happen? Now what I'll try to do is, I was using 4 spaces here. Instead of 4 spaces, I'll give only 2 spaces. I give only 2 spaces. Then this is neither part of outside of for loop nor part of inside for loop, right? You can see the change in the color. It's showing in red color, which means it's neither part of inside of for loop nor part of outside of for loop. So to be part of outside of for loop, it should be same level as that of the for loop, first for condition here, or for keyword. To be part of inside of for loop, it should be same as that of the same level as that of the inside print statement. But it is neither outside nor inside. You can see in the change in the color. I given only two spaces, hence it's going to fail with indentation error. Because this is not clear whether it is inside or outside. This should not be the case. Always remember, 4 white spaces are used for indentation in Python. So I have used 4 spaces for the above statement. Now for the below statement here, the second print statement, I've just used only 2 spaces. So it is neither outside for loop nor inside for loop. Hence this is going to fail with indentation error. It doesn't match any indentation level. So this is the quite common error when you're working with Python. So generally in other programming languages we'll have flower bracket, right? In C or Java or other languages, we will use flower brackets. We don't have any flower bracket concept here in Python. We will use this indentation itself. And then coming to the tips and tricks for today. So the tips and tricks are, let's say if you wanted to compare against multiple values, right? To verify the multiple values, suppose let's say I wanted to check whether m equal to 1 or m equal to 3 or m equal to 5 or m equal to 7. Instead of doing it this way, you can do it by using in operator. If you use in operator, you can see I don't need to write a lot of code and I can achieve the same. So try using in operator if you wanted to check against the multiple values. And then the second Python tip and trick is, so this is pretty straightforward again. So this is called a chaining of comparison operators. Suppose the condition is, let's say if you are trying to do if a less than b and b less than c, instead of doing it this way, you can club it or you can chain it by using if a less than b less than c. You'll get the same output, right? So this is called as chaining of comparison operators. And based on today's session, I have got 10 interview questions for you. What I would encourage is go through the recording, practice everything, then come back to these interview questions. Let me also share this notebook with you. File, download as HTML. I will share this notebook with you. Again, as I told yesterday, don't copy paste the code. If you copy paste it, you will never learn it. You have to write it line by line, character by character. You have to write it. Only then you can learn it. Okay, and I've got some assignments also for today. You can see the clear problem statement. I've given the clear input, clear output, and I've given you hint as well. So see if you can solve these problems. These are pretty straightforward and pretty interesting as well. Just give it a try. Okay, I think this is what I wanted to talk, guys. Any questions anybody have? Any questions so far? Okay, so tomorrow we're going to talk about lists in Python. That will be very interesting. So just be prepared. Okay, see you tomorrow then. Bye.